Hey crafters, I'm back on my channel with another video. This one makes the most of distress inks with a blood moon, perfect for autumn or Halloween. Hope you enjoy! So in order to do the blood moon effect on this card, you need to have the right kind of paper. So here's two types of paper that I have in my craft stash, and I'm just putting distress ink on both of them. And I'm going to spray both of them with water, and you can see how differently they react. So the one on the top here, the ink spreads well, whereas the one on the bottom, it kind of bleaches when you spray it with water. You need paper like the one on the top for this effect. So I started this card by doing the background, and I used a moon mask and sort of placed it where I'd like to go, and then used a bit of masking tape just to mark where that moon will be. Now this moon mask is 2 3/4 of an inch. And then using some distress ink, I just mapped out roughly where I wanted the pathway to be on the bottom of the scene. I didn't want to make it too perfect because I wanted it to look kind of like a dirt road. So after putting some ink down, I used a stencil on top and then used the same color ink on top. This is the stone stencil from Lavinia Stamps, and I tried using different colors, but I like the tone-on-tone effect the most. So next, I removed that masking tape and then put my circle back down. And then in order for the blood moon effect to be the most effective, you need to have lots of ink around the moon. So I started with some mustard seed distress ink and a medium to heavy amount of pressure. So I was just trying to put as much ink as I could around that mask. And then I went slightly darker with some crackling campfire ink, distress ink as well, and then continued over the same area. And then once I was happy with that, I went in with my final color there, which is the aged mahogany distress ink. And again, this is over the same area so that there's 3 layers of ink gradually getting darker. And then after removing the mask, I used some water to get the effect. So I kind of sprayed the water on an angle, sort of towards the left of the card, so that the ink would pool towards the middle. And then I sprayed it with my heat gun just so that I got the ink where I wanted it to go. And then I repeated this on the other side, spraying on an angle towards the center of the moon. And by using the heat tool and a bit of paper towel to remove excess water, you can kind of put the red ink where you want it to go. So now I'm just going to completely dry this with my heat tool and make sure that I dry the front and the back of the card so that I can continue to build up the background. So add a bit more water and then dry this again. And I would keep doing that until I'm happy with the results. And you can see the blood moon is starting to take shape here. So this is the same thing, but the card on the right is made with the wrong kind of paper. So if you find you're not getting this blood moon effect, I strongly suggest you check your craft stash and see if you have another kind of paper. So I'm going to put that mask back on again and go in with my darkest color again, the aged mahogany distress ink, and just darken up around the moon there. As you can tell from the 2 sides, when you do use water on it, sometimes it lightens the ink a little bit. And then I'm going to work outwards and just build in the rest of the sky there. So I'm going to add the crackling campfire again, which is this lovely orangey red color. And then I'm going to put in the mustard seed. And I think you need to have this contrast of this bright yellow to make the background more interesting. If you made it all reds and oranges, it might look a little bit flat. And then on the outside of the card, I'm going to go with an orange. This is the carved pumpkin Distress ink, and I'm going to put that around the edges. And I like the effect of this carved pumpkin, but I thought that it needed to be a bit darker. So I ended up going in with a darker color once I lighten up that mustard seed. So I'll start with some of that crackling campfire, put that around the edge, and you can see right away that looks so much better than just the carved pumpkin. That's one of the things I love about using ink in the background, is if you're not happy with it, you can always change it up a little bit. So I did end up darkening this even further with some of that aged mahogany, but with a lighter pressure. And then just to add a little bit of texture in that background, I used some water and just spritzed over the back here, trying to avoid that moon area. And then I just used a bit of paper towel to dab that off and get it ready for stamping. So the first stamp that I added onto my background is one of the Lavinia Stamps witches. This is called Prue, and I stamped her with some Nocturne ink, and I wanted her to be standing looking at that blood moon. So I stamped her right in the middle on the path there. And I applied a fair amount of pressure just so that I could make sure that she stamped cleanly and clearly over that inked moon. And then around her, I wanted to add some tree branches and a sign. So this sign is called Hallowmere, and I stamped it with the acorn ink. And I was toying with the placement and ultimately decided that it should go on the right here. But I want this to be able to be red because I really like how Lavinia Stamps adds these neat little details on the sign. So I stamped it on a bit of white paper, which I will cut out and color later. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to add the tree branch stamp and that same acorn ink, and just sort of stamp this around the edges, rotating the stamp so that it looks like she's in the middle of a forest. And I wanted a little bit of the tree or the tree branch to go on top of that moon, but also to be on the top. So I'm rotating the branch and putting it where it looks nice. And as you can tell from the color of this stamp, it's one of my oldest Lavinia stamps, and it's also one of my most used. So I love how there's a thicker part of this branch near the bottom, so you can stamp just the bottom part of the branch and get a completely different effect. Or you can stamp near the top like I'm doing here, and the branches look a lot thinner and finer. So it's quite a versatile stamp. So then I added a whole bunch of leaves, and I've just sped this up because there are quite a lot. And I started with some of the Glamorous ink. This is the Mini Leaf 5. It's kind of like a maple leaf trio. And then I used some Rainforest ink, which is a lovely green color. And then also some of that acorn. And if you notice, I did stamp a few of those glamorous colored or the red leaves on top of that moon as well, just for a little bit of interest. And I wanted to emphasize that pathway at the bottom there. So I used a bit of scrap paper and then just stamped that leaf along the edge. So it looks like a whole bunch of leaves have fallen down and are kind of lying on the side of the road beside the path. And I did this on both sides. And then I thought it would be clever if there were some leaves that were kind of in the air as well. So what I did is, once I was happy with all my brown leaves, I just cleaned off my stamp so that only one leaf is inked up, and then just stamped that so that I have a few single leaves that are falling down. So then I just wanted to darken the edges a little bit to make this look a bit more dramatic. And I started with that vintage photo ink. And you could leave it here if you like, especially if this is more of an autumn card. But I wasn't quite 100% happy with it. So I ended up going in again with some more ink. I tried that aged mahogany, and it's better than the vintage photo, but I still thought it was missing a contrast. But I did like how it was kind of muting the colors of the leaves and making it a bit more subtle. So I will continue this in a minute after I've done some more details. So as I mentioned, I wanted the words on the sign, the Hallowmere stamp, to be visible. So I colored them with my Copic markers, which I prefer to use, starting with the dark and the medium and then a light brown. And using the light brown really brightens this up and makes the words quite visible. And then I cut them out, I fussy cut it out, and then I glued them on top of the Hallowmere stamp on my original background. Now, if you're using pencil crayons or another medium to color the sign in, you might not need to do this step and could skip it. But if you're using Copic markers, they don't work well with the Versaclair inks. You can add a little bit of ink, but if you blend over Versaclair inks, it does smudge. So once that was secured, I then filled in the post, and as I mentioned, I just used a tiny bit of ink. And then I wanted to concentrate on adding some details to Prue. So I'm not very good at drawing, which is why I love stamping so much, but I figured I could probably do the back of Prue, so it looks like she's looking at the moon. So using a gel pen, this one is a metallic black jelly roll pen, I added some details so it looks like her back is to us. Basically just pleats in her skirt and hair, and then kind of like the shape of her hat. And I thought using that metallic black, it looks almost like a silver rather than a white. It was, I thought, a bit more witchy. And then I added a green detail to her staff and then a clear jelly roll pen around the moon itself, just to give a little bit of sparkle on this card. And then I decided that the outside of the card needed that last finishing touch, so I used some black soot distress ink And as you can see, that's just what this card needed. I think it needed that contrast. So I put that lightly around the edges, as you can see here. Being careful not to be too heavy-handed. I wanted to still show that beautiful detail from the leaves and the background. So I love adding sentiments to my cards. So I picked up a few stickers from the sentiment, it's called Sticker 6 set from Lavinia Stamps, and added them on the front of the card. The first sticker says magical things, and the second one says just because. And the stickers come in 3 different colors in the sentiment sticker pack. I decided on the black, and I also decided after some fiddling to put them on straight rather than to mimic the shape of the hollow mirror sign. This would be a great card to give someone just to cheer them up or to remind them that you're thinking of them. And I like to put a little bit of interest on the inside of the card too. So after putting this on a 5x7 inch card base, I just used double-sided tape to do that. I made sure that it lined up properly, cut off a little excess that was showing on the edge here, and then I added a little bit of flourish on the inside of the card. And you can always re-stamp the image that you have on the outside of the card, but I decided to use that stencil again and just add a little light bit of ink on the inside. So what I did is I used a bit of masking tape, the length of the card, put that on the top to mask it, and then put my stone stencil back down. And then I used a little bit of pressure with some black soot ink, first without the stencil, the top and the bottom corners, and then I put the stencil on top. And then I got that beautiful tone-on-tone effect, the same as the pathway. So you could always make this with the vintage photo color if you prefer. But I wanted to match the sentiment. So then I just removed that masking tape and added my inside sentiment again from that sticker pack number 6. And I'm just going to use the one that says, "You're enough." And now you can see that finished card with that gorgeous blood moon. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!